Hey, everybody. Welcome to Willows Bend. My name is Donna Gorton. I'm your host. And tonight we are going to be talking about savants, geniuses through disorders. And so I'm going to wait for the feed to come up in my group. For those who might be new to me, I do have a Facebook group called the Willows Bend, and in there is where most of the people who watch my show when it's live go there to view it. So at any rate, I'm out of the chat there. So if you see me looking to the side, that's what I'm doing, is watching my group's chat. So at any rate, with my glasses on, whoop, I don't know why my book group opened. There we go. So let's refresh it. And by now, I'm guessing that it's been shared in, probably. We're pretty close to it. No, get a member request. Let's do that first here. There we go. And there, and refresh. So I'd like to take a minute, there I am, to say hi to everybody in my group, to, let them know I see them and welcome them in. So there you guys are. Hi, guys. Let's see, immediately send you a heart so you know I see you all. I see you. There we go. Almost chose the broken heart little emoji. No, I don't want that. There we go. Okay. So hopefully everyone is good. Welcome, everybody. Here I am. You found me, Nancy. Book group is on Wednesday, so this is Monday. So while we're waiting, I am gonna do up the sage blessing and / protection that I always do. I did just accept another member in. Hopefully she realizes she's been accepted in and can come in. Hi, Sandy, and join us. So I'm hoping everyone had a chance to see the pictures I posted earlier this afternoon in the group from someone who has been diagnosed as a savant, and their talent lies in artwork and sculpting. And boy, howdy, they do such a beautiful, beautiful work. So at any rate, if you haven't yet, they're in there in the show reminder post I did, or I always do, I should say. There we go. So they're in there, and yeah, I popped in to try to get a hold of Nancy Mary because she went in there by mistake. So I went in to kind of let her know, nope, I'm over here tonight. Yeah, weren't they great, Sandy? I mean, what an amazing job. And even the self-sculpture he did of himself, he did a really nice job on that as well. But the gentleman can't even tie his own shoelaces or live alone, button his shirt and by himself, yet he does these amazing three-dimensional sculptures. We're going to talk about him a little later on. So anyway, so with this sage, I cast ashes on my notes, a circle of protection around everybody who is watching the show or listening anywhere out there. And may that circle of protection prevent any harm, ill will, negative intention, or otherwise impacting anyone, and follow everyone out into their personal and private lives to keep them safe and well from any sort of harm whatsoever coming their way. And do it over the dog so he maybe not be so difficult in dealing with him. Bless his little heart. Can't reach little girl. So I will it, so mote it be. There we go, guys. I'll just do it over here for my stone too. Sage, I cleanse the stone of all energy except for its own, with the hopes it works with mine. There we go. Rock on. We'll get that up there. And I could not get my dog to go out to save my life prior to the show. So hopefully he doesn't disrupt things, but I did try many times from between 6 o'clock and now. It's, what is it? 8:09 my time here, Eastern time zone. He just did not want to wake up, but I would not be surprised if he does have to go. Thank you for sharing, Nancy. So I did try, but be prepared. Hey, Sandy. All right. So savants, geniuses through disorders. So First of all, as I'll always, for anyone who is new to my show, I always define what the topic is just to make sure we're all on the same page going forward with the topic and we all have a root understanding of what it's talking about, right? So a savant is defined as a person of learning, especially with detailed knowledge in some specialized field, or a person affected with developmental disabilities or diagnoses such as autism or intellectual disabilities, or who is exceptionally or exhibits exceptional skills or brilliance in some limited field like science, math, or music. And according to David G. Myers, people with Savant Syndrome, for example, often score really, really low on the intelligence IQ tests, but have an island of brilliance, some incredible ability, as in computation, drawing, or musical memory, end quote. And then the first known use of the Savant Syndrome, as far as being like accepted in the world of psychology, hey, Aaron, goes back to 1983 to be defined as above, as I just got done reading, via the Merriam-Webster Dictionary. Now, the causes for Savant Syndrome, they are still trying, they haven't unlocked all of it yet by any means. What they do seem to have discovered primarily is that it is like a genetic predisposition for that. So the term Savant Syndrome was first put into circulation way back at the end of the 19th century by a J.L. Daun, D-A-U-N. And he called savants mentally retarded, but he noted their ability to learn and know the world. So they were able to learn about things and know the world, but there was always a lacking of social skills and how to navigate the world, and or even be lower functioning to where they can't maintain self-care, perhaps, but they're bloody brilliant in a certain area, right? Excuse me. So let's look at some of the causes for Savant Syndrome, and hence in the Geniuses Through Disorders part of the show. So modern science knows of about 100 people with Savant Syndrome. Half of them tend to suffer with autism, or autistic disorders anyway, and the rest have other disorders of the psyche of various kinds. There are cases when the condition was a consequence of head injuries or degenerative diseases of the brain, etc. Hi, Kim. Physicians think that savantism can be the result of perinatal pathology, and these include disorders of the placenta. Oh, good. I'm glad you're interested, Sandy. It is an interesting topic. I actually learned a lot through the research. Keith said, I'd love to have you on my trivia team. I would love to be a part of your trivia team, Keith. There's a little bit of everything up in my head. a lot about a lot of things. A little bit about a lot of things. There we go. So the physicians think that savantism can be the result of perinatal pathology, and that these include disorders of the placenta and the unborn baby's development in utero. Something doesn't quite form correctly inside. And speaking of said dog, he's getting up now. Great timing, Jake. May I say that? You know what? We tried to avoid this. We did. So the causes are still in the field of assumptions, which means they actually don't really know what causes it, because it can be so very different things. Nancy asks, is Asperger's syndrome included? Yes, because Asperger's is on the autism spectrum. So it's included under all the different forms of autism that can manifest. So it is included. However, there are only currently about 50 worldwide of savants that are currently in existence out of the 60 million plus people who have the autism diagnosis currently. There's only like 50 of them, of savants. Those that are on may have whatever is the root cause, whether it's on the autism spectrum or some other psyche disorder or physical disability. They manifest it in having where they are highly specialized in one special area. However, it doesn't run over into other areas of their lives. So you can have someone who is a genius mathematically and can take out. I was watching a video last night of one gentleman who, the pi is a long string of infinite numbers, right? And calculators, computers, etc., they could, only go out to 22,000 numbers after, like at point blah 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 pi that's pi. So taken out to that far. So in doing his thing, he sees them appear in his head. So the guy was first did the calculation for pi on a calculator and was following him each step of the way through each number. And as he got to each number, finally the calculator couldn't take it any farther. So he then went on to a computer, and the computer could only take it so far before it ran out of numbers, and it still wasn't to the end. So the gentleman we're going to talk about him in a little while, and I can tell you the story while I go let the dog out real quick, and then it's done and over with, and we're not going to be disturbed by him having to go out or have an accident, hopefully, and through the rest of the show. So let's just go for a walk. So this guy, he agreed to work with, I want to say it was the Royal Society. There was the lighting, as I get my kitchen light on here, and to be tested out by them regarding his ability to calculate pi. And again, to do this in his head, that alone is a pretty spectacular feat. But watch out, baby. That aside, he said it took him 5.5 hours to get through to the 22,000 numbers for pi, and he was right on every single one of them, which I can't even fathom. 22,000 numbers. One of the people, go ahead. Sorry, and I don't have my phone with me for chat because I couldn't maneuver all 2 devices, the dog and my walker. And as they paused, for those who are new to me, perhaps, I have an elderly geriatric Dalmatian who also has dementia. And I tried to get him up to go out for my show per usual, and he just kept not waking up to go out. And when he finally did, I had to get on the air. So he's going now. But thankfully, he doesn't tend to stay out too long at night. So he'll be back in pretty quickly. So it had this panel. I want to say there were 6 people who were separated by this divider where 3 were on each side. And he was at the head of the table, the savant was. And he took 5.5 hours to go through the 22,000 numbers. Hello, Mothra. Yeah, you should go back outside so you don't die on my porch, just saying. And one of them actually likened it to being like a religious experience to sit and watch him go through these 22,000 numbers straight from his head. And he said, should I continue? And they actually said, no, you know what? We're going to accept that you could keep doing this indefinitely. And he really could. So he has a specialized disorder that his comes from. And because he's so high functioning, we're going to talk about him more later in the show, but he gives science a unique chance to look inside the head of a savant to get more firsthand information of how the process works for them. Yeah, there it goes. And most, again, are much lower functioning, and they can't really talk about how or why they do it. Now, he doesn't know why, because it is the way it is, but he's very vocal in describing how it occurs, what he sees in seeing and experiencing the numbers and so forth. I'll tangle that one. It's done. he does have a lot of like social skill issues where that doesn't come natural to him. And he really relies on people to kind of tell him, you know, hey, dude, you're kind of being a bit over the top here. You might want to tone it down a bit so you don't scare people. But, you know, beyond that, when you have autism of any kind, it's really like, how to explain it? So it's kind of like they have to learn to kind of mimic and imitate the social skills that we all take for granted and that we can self-regulate through our experiences. You know, we're taught at a very young age and grow up with that, and it's natural to adapt to our whatever situation we're in socially, right? And they don't have, so if therapy can be started, they stand a better chance at being, it's kind of learning to fake it till you make it. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I know you guys like Jake, but that's more explaining to those who aren't familiar with him. But so they are taught how to make eye contact, but when they make eye contact, they're not really looking at the person they're making eye contact with, if that makes sense. They're taught to look someone in the eye, but it doesn't have the same meaning for them as it does for the rest of us. But they're taught that it makes others less uncomfortable if they learn how to do these skills, right? But they can get a little more intense with it. Hey, Shannon, and welcome everybody else, by the way. Please share out if you can. It's much appreciated too. Come on up. I'm not going to fight with you on the air. So if you happen to choose to ignore me and stay standing, that one's on you during the show, dude. Okay, so now I'm back in front of my notes in chat. Sorry, guys. Oh, okay. So interestingly, according to Professor E.L. Reinstein and Alexei Portnov, thank you for sharing already, Mary. There's 5 times more male savants than females with this pathology. The only thing they can kind of figure out is it's got to be probably hormonally based. So it's believed that the presence of an ultra high level of the male hormone testosterone may be the cause of why there's so many more men who are savants than females, and that it promotes accelerated brain growth in babies with Savant Syndrome while inhibiting the production of oxytocin, responsible for successfully adapting within society. There's even some assumptions that of a virus that might cause the neurons to mutate within the brain. But again, so it's kind of like SIDS deaths with babies, that type of thing, where it's not one set thing that they can point a finger at to say, yep, that's the cause. So instead it's, hey, don't do any of this wide scope of things in order to lessen the chance of it occurring. Well, that same methodology is applied to this, where they don't have it down pat yet what's behind it. So they toss out all kinds of different ideas and try to look for commonalities amongst those who have been diagnosed with savantism. But it's, again, there's only 50 in the whole world. So it's not like it's a really common occurrence to come across one, first of all, to study, or have them be high functioning enough to be able to really, again, talk about their process or how it feels or anything else or their experiences. So, so there's even some assumptions that, through via MRI scans of the brain of people who have this phenomena, show that the right hemisphere of the brain replenishes deficiencies on the left hemisphere of the brain. Now, for those who don't know, the right side of our brains in most people is more responsible for our creative side, our artistic side, our side that is capable of processing emotions, societal cues, body language, that sort of thing. Whereas the left side of the brain is the analytical, logical side and is in control of how we function and process things out within the world. So their MRI scans are showing that the right hemisphere of the brain tends to replenish the deficiencies of the left hemisphere. So the creative side is feeding basically anything that might be lacking in the logical side. Can I help you? What are you doing over there? Come back over here. Come on. You're too funny. So I wish you guys could see him. He's like peeking around a side of my table that he never even can fit his head into. Come on, Jake. Come on over here. Come on. Come over this way, honey. You're not going to be able to get in there. I suddenly just see his white head peering up from under my table. What are you doing? I'm not moving my table on that side. Come on over this way. Over here, dude. You silly. Come on before you knock everything over. Come on. Nope, 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 nope. You can't get in there. Shaker. Come on, dude. Over here. Come on. This way. Over here. Look. See my hand? Come over on this side of me. I can pet you while I talk from this side, but don't. Yeah, get out of the corner. Come on. I can't move my table any closer. You're going to have to figure out how to back out or turn around because I can't help you. Sorry. He ends up he wants to go in the bathroom, and I have him blocked off because there's no need for him to be in there. There's nothing in there. Just gives him more space to wander. Come on, Jake, turn around and come on out. Turn around and come on back out if you can. There you go. Good job. All right, come on up. Get settled. Come on. Uppy puppy. Not that Uppy puppy works anymore, but he's at least came around to the right side of the table. Okay, so the MRI, what the MRI results showing that the right side is kind of replenishing the shortages on the left hemisphere. This idea is confirmed by savants having uniquely developed one of any skill, like a phenomenal memory or absolute hearing, where there is absolutely no flaws in how they hear things. Dude, I can't bend my leg. Move. Will you move and stop it, please? I can't move that way, dude. Good grief. Sorry. It's clear that the brain in savants has an unusual structure. So, for example, remember the movie Rain Man that had Dustin Hoffman and Tom Cruise in it? That was quite popular. When did that come out? Gosh, I didn't even see a year on it, but I think it was late 90s, maybe early 2000s. And Dustin Hoffman played the savant in that movie, which was actually based on a real life character, which I never even heard that it was based on a real life person until last night when I was doing the research. Yeah, very good movie. But it was based on a real life person. So Kim Peek is the real life person that Dustin Hoffman's character was based on. And his brain hasn't been divided into hemispheres. So in Kim Peek's brain, it's all like one brain. So there's not two halves in his brain, if that makes sense. And he is a savant. So Savant Syndrome can also be caused through epilepsy, head injury, even dementia can lead to savantism. Risk factors for it. So it's keeping in mind that it's kind of like with Sid's death or even smoking, where they group together 300 possible outcomes. If you have this or you do this, this is the outcome of what could happen as a result of this. Because they don't have all the answers, it's a speculation. So they do know the main cause is genetic predisposition. And the main risk factor is hereditary mental disorders. So like the presence of autism or Asperger's in the sibling, or family history of having other mental health disorders, that can be a thing that can lead to it. However, again, keeping in mind, there's only 50 out of the 60 million that are, diagnosed on the autism scale or spectrum, throughout the world. Only 50 around the world have this. So it's not something that they commonly see to really, get in-depth studies on. So other significant risk factors can be a mature maternal age, which is, well, by the research, they said over 40 or 49 for fathers. Now, most of the time when you're going to have a baby, anything over 35 is considered a mature maternal age to be. And the further over 35 you are, the higher risk you are for having different birth defects with the baby. Those structures within us start to break down that take care of a baby, and they don't work quite as well as they once did. The muscle structure, everything is just different. The quality of the eggs that we produce, they start to change too as we age. So Nancy says, we had a Sabbat in the small town I grew up in. He could repeat an entire ball game word for word. Wow. There is a guy similar to that through, and we'll talk about in a little bit here, who had similar skills as that. And, it can't be used for a whole lot other. I mean, there was one guy, even I have heard of him quite a while before last night's research, actually. And he had gotten hit by a baseball in like what's, I guess, considered the death zone of your head. And he went down. He doesn't remember going unconscious during it, but he was down for a little while. And once he caught his breath, he got up, resumed playing, etc. The next day he got up, and you can name any date since his accident back in, I want to say it happened like 1995. You can name any date in between now and then, and he can tell you the weather. Well, it's not just the temple, Marianne. It's kind of like this whole area from like here to here and over to your temple area. So it's kind of where like baseball players would wear that when they're batters, have the batter's helmet that covers their ear and gives extra padding and protection on that side of their heads, because to get hit there can kill you. So he could tell you the weather and the day of the week for any date you gave him since his accident, and only between those years. And now he can't do like long ago, but just since his accident onward, you can say, February 12th, and he can say, sunshine and snow, or sunshine and cold, or whatever it was, but they check it and it's correct. So the parietal area. Yeah. Oh, you guys haven't heard anything yet for some of the skills that we're going to get into for the 10 best known savants in history. I'm going to cover them. So anyway, so the risk factors, like the presence of autism, we said that already, sorry. The birth weight. Another risk factor is birth weight of under 5 pounds, 8 ounces can be another risk factor for developing Savant syndrome. You're welcome to get up on the bed and join us anytime, but I will not have a screaming match on air with you. Sorry. You can get up. Come on up. You're welcome to, you know how. Premature birth before 35 weeks. Postpartum resuscitation of a newborn, meaning like, their brain was deprived of oxygen and they couldn't get them breathing after they were born. Congenital malformations present at birth within or uterine, either in the environment or in the uterine environment. So it can be like something goes wrong in their formation and development, either from once they're born, something's in their environment that can cause it and lead to, I don't know, and say if they live in they're neglected and they're malnourished or something in their early years, they might develop this from that, or something within the uterine structure while they're developing. Their needs aren't fully met. There's some problem with the placenta and their attachment to the placenta. Something like that can also cause it, they think. Being male, that is also one of the quote risk factors. Vitamin D deficiencies, which I found interesting that was a possible cause for it. At least they're not ruling it out. Unfavorable ecological environments leading to genetic mutations. So again, wherever you're living and exposed to, that's going to impact your genetic structure within yourself. the quality of the eggs and the sperm that go into making a baby, first of all, and it affects the health of the fetus. Is the baby having its needs met in utero? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Are you going to always know that? Not always. And if you're not getting necessarily good prenatal care, well, they wouldn't get detected, especially in the older generations. In many, the left hemisphere of the brain is responsible for verbal information, analytical thinking. It has, to some extent, like some damage is on the left side, left hemisphere of the brain in all of those who have Savant syndrome. So an example of this, so there was a 9-year-old boy who had a gunshot wound to the left hemisphere of his head, and he became deaf. He stopped talking, and the right side of his body was paralyzed, but he developed an outstanding ability with mechanics. So he could determine, like, spatial skills were phenomenal, off the charts. He could detect like distances accurately without having any sort of measuring tools. He could build things on through whatever medium it came to him. It didn't say which medium of mechanics, but that's the biggest point of mechanics, or the skill of having mechanical skills, is the ability to judge distances of, far away accurately without having any tools to do it. So like going out and surveying, surveyors have specialized equipment they use that can tell how far something is distance wise and so forth, and the dimensions of it. They can do that on their own. Pretty impressive. So there was a Dr. D. Treffert who has been studying Savant syndrome for over 30 years now. And he says that the unusual genius is that of the left brain hemisphere not working properly with the right brain. And the right brain forms new skills using neural cells designed for other functions to reveal hidden skills. Is kind of how he terms it. Come on up, Jake. Go ahead. You're welcome to, but otherwise you're getting ignored, and you're going to stand for the whole show if you choose. So symptoms of this can be basic domestic activity, or sorry, why did I write domestic? My notes I wrote, supposed to be daily activities of daily living. They're difficult, like eating, dressing oneself. Communication, especially with strangers, is very, very difficult if you have Savant syndrome. Again, those social skills, those are a challenge, right? Some areas of limited knowledge, they're bloody brilliant, off the charts. Like not even like measuring at the genius level with some skills, but again, it's not in the core foundation of skills that you have to get by through life with. It is a very specialized skill area. For example, some can, without errors, retell large volumes of text that they only heard one time. So, they can sit down with the Encyclopedia Britannica, hear it read to them once, and they can sit and verbally recite it word for word, verbatim, without any mistakes whatsoever, for the entire thick book, and only hearing it once. Those who are predisposed to musical tendencies, same thing. They can hear or see somebody performing or listening to a certain song, and they can just step right up to a piano and play it away, like, they've been doing it all their lives and have been in training for it forever, and they just start doing it one day. Lots of cases report that, especially with music, that it often seems to be pianos. And I kind of wonder if, because a lot of, especially older homes, had pianos in the home, more so than, say, I don't know, institutions, let's say. So they had access to a family piano, whether or not, it got played or not, didn't matter. It just sat in people's living rooms. It was part of the furniture. And they would get up in the middle of the night or during the day and just sit down at the piano and play some, like, Tchaikovsky's Concerto No. 1 without any training. They heard it on TV once, and it was enough to go and replicate it completely. Just, mind-blowing. Come on up. So those with Savant Syndrome have phenomenal memory. Those who have it are, in most known cases, have only one talent that's developed perfectly. They remember very little to the smallest, down to the smallest detail, along with the main events with without delving into their meaning. So they're not like internalizing the meaning of what they're reciting, yet they're able to recite it anyway. So the two parts of the brain are not working back and forth together correctly. So they have the phenomenal memory skills to recite it, to play it, to draw it, whatever their skill set is, but they're not really internalizing what it means. They're not, they don't understand how they know, they don't understand how it works, or whether it's math skills, whatever, they don't understand anything about it other than they are doing it, but not knowing why or how. So are people just not talking in chat, or is my chat stopped working correctly? I'm not seeing anybody having said anything in quite a while, so I was curious. So savants tend to live in their own world, mostly are uncommunicable. Speech disorders are very common. There's an avoidance of eye contact and touching. Okay, thank you guys. I wasn't sure it was stuck. If it's developed from genetic abnormalities, then parents/caregivers, whichever they have, will see unique abilities starting during early childhood. They start to manifest in most cases. If it's something that happened in utero, or either at birth or from a genetic abnormality, it'll start to manifest in early childhood. Remember that person, Kim Peek, who was the one that the Rain Man movie was based on? So good. So by 2 years old, hi, Christina, welcome. I don't know what he's doing over there. Jake, what are you trying to do? I think he's trying to reconstruct his blanket on the floor. Just come on up. You're all right. Go ahead. Nobody's in your way. It's all clear over there. Go ahead. Your choice. So Kim Peeks, that the movie Rain Man was, the main Rain Man character was based off of. So by 2 years old, he learned to read and remembered everything that was read, that he read or was read to him. By age 12, he stopped going to school because he mastered the school program perfectly. Like he'd gone through everything that is taught in school from kindergarten through 12th grade by the age of 12. There was nothing more that the school could offer him, so he didn't have to, he finished at age 12. So we now know that the earlier that work is on behaviorally correcting through therapy that started, the greater ability to adapt to society. So for example, when you start to see the genetic abnormalities take place through early childhood, if you can put therapy in place right away with them and start working with them from a very young age, they're much more likely to be able to have at least some social skills, as well as develop some verbal skills that they might not have otherwise had, and definitely didn't have way back in the olden days, if you will, before this stuff started really getting identified and early childhood services started getting provided for children who needed it. And again, if there's 60 million people on the autism spectrum currently in the world, they had to create programs to help work with these kids, both in the school system and in their early childhood years, because that's when you're going to have the greatest success. And that plays out even if you have a normal, quote, healthy child who has no issues whatsoever. They're more open to learning multiple languages in the first 5 years of their life and a host of other skills. So it also serves to say that in the first 5 years of life, if you can provide therapies to work on their specific issues one-on-one, that they can make great progress towards handling themselves better, at least within a social environment. So they still tend to be most likely always going to need assisted living in order to get by on, because they're not able to function fully on their own. And again, a lot of the deficits that some of these children experience are severe in nature, where the IQ can be generally very low, but off the charts, bloody brilliant in one specific area. So, so now we definitely have the technology in place also that can diagnose this stuff in infancy. Thank you, Christina, and welcome to your first live Willows Ben show, by the way. So, as in savantism can accompany disorders like autism, they don't learn to master societal adaptations. Like I said, they learn more to not freak people out by their behaviors or be over the top with it and be too much. But they still, even if they're really high functioning, they still need reminders now and again, like, dude, tune it back down a little bit because you're getting a little too much or intense with how you're approaching people, you're making them uncomfortable, what have you. So they need reminders along the way, but it's more learning mimicry, if that makes sense. So they're learning to mimic eye contact. They're learning to mimic basic social interaction, even though it's not mimicry as a normal child would learn it. I hate to use the term normal, but a healthy child, there we go. A healthy child would learn those skills as part of, without even really thinking about it. They're focusing on it, they watch, they learn, and they integrate it into their repertoire behaviors, right? With these kids, you gotta, they're learning to copy it, the behavior, without really understanding why they're doing it per se, or the meaning behind it. So they're learning to do it to make others comfortable. They are beautiful though. And like I was talking with Christina earlier, that it's thought that these children, because there's such a high incidence of it now in the world, that on a metaphysical side of things, that they're here now to teach alternative methods of communication to people, because many of them are nonverbal, or at least only verbal if it pertains to the specialized skill they have. And it's teaching people to find other ways to communicate, and that there are other ways to communicate other than just the spoken word. So it's thought that that's maybe part of their purpose, but also to show the world, like, look at all the chemicals you're dumping into the environment that can be leading to these disorders occurring at a much higher frequency than they would on their own. So Jake, come on up. You can get up, go ahead. So again, they're mimicking it to not make it as obvious that they have something going on for them. So forms of Savant Syndrome. So in music, they can do the ideal performance. Come on up. Of pieces heard one time. And again, it's usually on the piano. So one of the earlier known cases of this was from 1849, and it was an African-American slave named, quote, they called him Blind Tom, and he was born in 1849, and he was a savant, and he could play a different piece of music on the piano or another instrument. With each hand, could play a different piece of music. So technically, he could do two songs at once while singing a third. So he could have Mary Had a Little Lamb going on this side. He could have You Are My Sunshine going on this hand and play them both perfectly. But he could be singing Here Comes the Rain Again or something, completely separate, and keep it in going in working order to perfection. Again, this is going back into 1849, and nothing was known about it. So it was kind of like, he's amazing, but nobody really knew any of the causes of it back then. And of course, being a Black slave, he's not going to have any sort of access to adequate medical care or testing to find out, but it was noted that he could do those things. Go ahead, you can get up. I'm not fighting with you in screaming match, so either you're going to get up or you're not, but whatever you do, you're going to do it to the duration of my show. So in painting or sculpture is another skill set they can have. They're a huge blessing to me. They're also spiritually gifted. Very awesome. So their skill set can lie within painting or sculpturing, like the pictures I posted in the group today. That gentleman could see the image once of that specific animal that he sculpted and do it perfectly down to the muscle fibers. Like, you know, that was just on pretty amazing. So their creations are accurate in all details. And there's also a speed of execution, meaning how fast that they can paint in or sculpt is done very quickly and without much thought. So it's just like boom, 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 done. And it's like perfection in and of itself. In mathematics, there's a instantaneous operation with multiple digit numbers, reproductions of long series of numbers while the math abilities aren't really understood or known, or while other math abilities aren't known. So, for example, that one gentleman can go out for the meaning of pi to 22,000 numbers out, like we talked about before, but he may suck at doing short division or multiplication, for example, but he could tell you, pi is, this number, decimal point, da, 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 out 22,000 spaces. So they have, that really highly focalized accuracy where it's on one specific skill set, but not overall as a whole per se. So with math, they may not understand the other mathematical like equations, properties, whatever, but they can do one kind really well. So whether it's adding or subtracting or multiplication or division. So it would be like one or the other, but not all of them. Who in the bloody heck? Okay, Kim is calling me through the room. She must have thought it was also book group tonight. And Christina's saying, yes, they love math and numbers, and that she has videos of her oldest playing drums when he was younger. She also keeps her daughter's artwork on the wall. Very cool. Yeah, feel free to post pictures if you want in the group. Come on up, Jake. Come on up. I don't know why people are getting it mixed up tonight that book group is Wednesday night. Don't know. So in mechanics, is the determination of exact distances without the use of tools. So they can eyeball something 3 football fields away and say, oh, this is X amount of feet away from here, but be spot on. And once again, it is measured out. So pretty intense. Yeah, Miriam, it's really only one kind of math, though. It's not like as all mathematics as a whole. It is one aspect of math that they are dominant in. So like they can do like operations involving multiple numbers or multiple digit numbers, like, like long division, for example, into, 100,000 numbers or what have you. Oh, Renee. Okay, so that would have to be deleted. That's why. Yeah, because Nancy accidentally called the room first. So it opened the room back up. Okay, gotcha. So another skill they can have is modeling, which is painstakingly accurate productions of really high complexity. They can have super sensitive sense of smell, touch, and vision. It's less common with savants to have several gifts or talents. It's usually just one thing. No, it's okay, Nancy. Accidents happen. I'm not mad. It's just I didn't realize they made a post in the room, or it opened the room is all. Come on up, Jake. Or not. Okay. So what is the treatment for Savant Syndrome? So giving us support of their talents and socialization training, like I said, therapies, including working on communication skills. Art therapy can also be a great outlet for them because it allows them expression of their inner world, because they're not able to like verbalize the way other healthy children can, then art therapy can give them a way to express that to the world of what's going on inside of them in their heads, what they see, and so forth. In my research, I only discovered one savant who was able to really describe verbally what he saw with his skill set, which we're going to talk about him in a minute. But most of them, again, they don't talk the rest of the time, but you put them at a piano to play a song and they may sing along to sing the words to that song they're playing, but they can't talk any of the rest of the time. That can happen. So 10 real life people who have Savant Syndrome. So we already mentioned Kim Peek, and he was the real Rain Man, and Kim was born with severe brain damage. And whilst his parents were told to institutionalize him as he'd never be able to walk or learn, his father wouldn't listen and decided not to go that route. And he does struggle with ordinary motor skills. So walking is difficult for him, and doing other, like feeding himself or taking a drink or opening things, whatever. Those are difficult skills for him. And he is severely disabled. Come on up. Your choice. Not going to scream. Come on up. And he does test well below average with intelligence tests, but he has read more than 12,000 books. 12,000 books in his life, and he remembers every single thing about them. He can recite back any part of any book he's ever read in his life, and he's read more than 12,000 of them. It gives new meaning to, remember that program, what was it, Pizza Hut used to run, of the book group or book club that you could, you'd make a goal of how many books you were going to read. And if you met that goal, you would get a free pizza or whatever at the end of the year. And most people had, 10 or 12 books on their list. 12,000 books he's read, and he can recite anything. So you can say, what was on page 216 of such and such a book? And he can tell you exactly what it says. You can pull the book out and follow right along, and he's got it down verbatim. It's pretty amazing. Temple Grandin is a great example. Yeah. Are we the norm, or are they? Well, I would say, we are more so only in that there are only 50 savants in the world. Yeah, very much a photographic memory. In some of them, not all of them can do that, but in Kim Peek's case, he can. Come on, Jake, come on up. The kids would take me to lunch using that program. No, nice. Come on up before your legs give out. Come on. Uppy pup. Your choice. I'm not going to scream at you to get you up. Come on up. So Kim Peek can also recall facts from 15 different subject areas, from history to geography to sports. He also remembers every piece of music he's ever heard. So every song he's ever listened to on the radio, every record player that's ever played or CD, every song he heard in a movie, he can remember every single song he ever heard. So you could ask him probably to recite it, and he could run down a whole big list of them. Come on up, Jake. I moved the table out. Go ahead. If you tell him a date, he can tell you what day of the week it was. So you can say your birthday, and he can tell you what day you were born on. So very highly specialized skills. He did use, after the Rain Man movie came out, he did used to go around tours of the country and speak through different speaking engagements until his health got too bad to really be able to maintain doing that anymore. But he loved it. He actually really enjoyed getting out there, the social accolades he would get through people being amazed by his abilities. So that was the real Rain Man. Jake, come on. Except, of course, in the movie, he was portrayed as having grown up in an institution. He didn't. He was raised in a home environment with his family, and that was probably a big reason why he was as high functioning as he was, considering the diagnosis he got. So he also, this is also cool too. So he can read 2 pages at one time. He calls it his computer, because his first name's Kim Pooter instead of computer, in about 3 seconds. So his left eye can read 1 page and his right eye can read the other page separately, and he can have them both read in about 3 seconds. So pretty amazing stuff. It would have been fascinating to meet him in person, I think. Well, any of these that we're going to talk about tonight would have been absolutely fascinating to meet in person. Number 2 is Leslie Lemke. Now, Leslie was born with severe birth defects that required doctors to need to remove his eyes in infancy. So he grew up not being able to see. Come on up. You're not going to get in front of me because I need my table. So come on up. Up to you. So he was put up for adoption, and he was adopted out by a nurse who was raising 5 kids of her own, remarkably, and she was 52 at the time of his adoption at 6 months old. That's a little late to get started out. We'll talk about having your hands full. I think they should be us now. We are behind. Yeah, in a lot of ways, and some people consider that, again, with those, with autism in general, that, they were put here much like indigo children, rainbow children, crystal children, that they're the newest generation to help us learn alternate means of communication, but also the effects of all of the different chemicals that are in the environment now we're pouring into ourselves. Same thing. So, so he was adopted by, this woman was married. So her and her husband, she was 52 years old though when she adopted him at 6 months old. There was a YouTube video out about him that I watched. That was like an interview with his mom and his adoptive mom, and showed him in action basically. And she said that, out of the blue one day, she got a call in their small town area. I guess the phone wasn't even in their, in their house yet. Like the house didn't have a phone yet. So they had to go to like the town store or something to use the phone. Hi, Kim. Glad you figured out where we are and made it in. Is that the way it works, Ted? So she got this call of, we got this baby. Are you interested? She said, well, sure. Why not? What's one more? Because again, she was already raising 5 of her own children. She had her hands full, but bless her heart. So she took him on. She just kept referencing about how tiny he was for his age. He was severely malnourished. He didn't even know how to swallow when she got him at 6 months old. So, him being uber underweight and just tiny in stature. He's full size, during the interviews I saw, but when he was little, he was very small for his age. So he had to be force fed to teach him how to swallow, and wasn't able to stand until he was 12 years old. And he didn't learn to walk until he was 15 years old. She said that she had him one day hang onto a fence and saw him kind of act like he was looking out over his own feet, like that kind of a move. But again, he had no eyes, so he couldn't see by normal means. So I don't know what, and maybe in some way he was able to sense the ground or see, I don't know. But that was the motion, she said, and she noticed him moving. And so she just encouraged him, and then he finally learned how to walk. But she did have to basically tie his feet onto hers to hold on to him while she walked, so he could feel the movements of walking to pick it up. But he didn't learn how to walk till he was 15. By age 16, his mom said as she woke up in the middle of the night and heard what sounded like maybe somebody left the TV on or a radio playing, she heard music. She woke her husband up and said, did you leave the TV on? And he said, no, I don't know. And so she got up to see what it was, anticipating having to turn something off. And it was him at the piano. And he was playing Tchaikovsky's Piano Concerto No. 1. And he'd only ever heard it one time on TV. And he was playing it perfectly. After that, he began to play all styles of music, and he went on to give concerts worldwide until his health deteriorated and he couldn't travel like he did. But he used to go on a performance, and she said that, he couldn't really speak. It was mostly nonverbal on his own, but when he was playing piano, he'd sit there belting out the words to the song. And sure, he was a little off key and whatever, but the fact that he could form the words even when he couldn't form normal speech was pretty amazing. So anyways, that is him. And the gentleman who did the sculptures that I posted the pictures in the show reminder notice, his name, if you open that up, you'll see all of the pictures in there. He does have an online website that you can go and buy these works of art. They're pricey, but I'm sure he's not the one pricing them. Whoever, is taking care of him is doing it as a means to help support him probably, but they're beautiful pieces. So his name is Alonzo Clemens. And as a toddler, Alonzo had a head injury and he wasn't able to feed himself or tie his shoes, but boy, can he sculpt. He only saw a fleeting image of an animal or on TV, but he could sculpt the perfect representation of a 3D figure of it, and have it all the connective tissues there down to the muscle fibers of whatever he was sculpting. And so in the sculptures I posted, there's several different kinds of animals in there, from a horse head to a full-bodied horse, which is not easy to sculpt, to a grizzly bear catching a salmon midstream. There was almost like a self-portrait sculpture of himself that does look a lot like him in person from the pictures I did see of him. So at any rate, he can see it once and then go and copy it. The next one is Gottfried Mind was the person's name, and he was another one of the earliest savants in history. So in 1776, he was placed in an art academy. Teachers found him very difficult because, again, if he happened to be, say, on the autism spectrum, that wasn't understood back then. So he would have just been seen as a very difficult child. Teachers found him difficult, but when challenged to draw a cat better than his teacher, he produced one so lifelike that they went on to call it like his cat, and he drew. So he could draw all these representations of cats in different poses and whatever. You can find the images online still out there, and it has a website of his work and stuff still today. So he had almost it was set up like a paternal relationship with cats. He had it with most animals, but more often with cats. And with animals, he could carry on playful, loving conversations with them. But with people, he would only either growl or grunt at them. And he was limited in his speech to that. But with the animals, he could carry on full conversations. So, but that was his skill set, was drawing. You probably should get up before your legs get too badly affected and you can't make the jump. Just saying, come on up. Come on, get up. I can't snap anymore, which sucks. Come on up. Go ahead. Or still stand there, your choice. Number 5 is Giles Trahan. So since the age of 5, he taught himself to draw 3D objects. By age 12, he started building a city of his own creation called Urville, like Urville, sorry. And at first, he started out using Legos, but those proved insufficient to really catch his vision. So then he learned that he could expand it much more easily by drawing it. So he made over 250 detailed drawings and made up a complete history of the city's founding. And they were all like unique buildings and city street scenes and things, but they weren't like The shapes of them were not identical to what you would see in a normal, like what we consider a normal city. So you might see a skyscraper, but it had a very domed top to it in the middle of Main Street. But he also came up with this huge history of the founding of the city and how it got to be what it is and to go behind it. But there's over 250 drawings he made building the city. Number 6 is Jedediah Buxton. So he was born in England in 1707. He wasn't able to write or had any knowledge of science or a history of anything else except for numbers. He was the world's earliest mental calculator and savant. So he associated everything with numbers. He was tested in 1754. I don't know what you're trying to do, but you don't need to be in that room, so leave the door alone, please. He was tested in 1754 by the Royal Society, and his mathematical skills could calculate numbers up to 39 figures long. So you could give him a long division problem of, what is 24 divided into 39 figures number, and he could accurately do it in his head and tell you what it is. It's number 7, Orlando Searle. So in 1979, 10-year-old Orlando. Hi, Lori. He was the one who was struck in the head with the baseball. So he fell to the ground and did eventually, like I said, got up and continued on playing with his day. And then when he got up the next day, for a while, he suffered from really bad headaches, but they did eventually go away, and he was left with these new abilities. So he can perform complex calendar calculations and remember the weather for every day since the accident. So you can ask him, like, what day did the World Series happen on in, I don't know, 1983 or something, let's say, and he could tell you what day of the week it happened on and what the weather was that day as well. Or what year did Mount St. Helens erupt in, or what day of the week was it, and he could tell you that and what the weather was like that day. Pretty interesting skill set. Come on up. But he says, in an interview I saw of him, that he can't explain it. He has no understanding of how or why it works, that it just appears in his head. So number 8 is Stephen Wiltshire. And as a young child, he was mute, and he was diagnosed as autistic and sent to a special school for special needs children. And he was found to have a passion for drawing. Slowly, he learned to speak his first words. And he was 9 years old by the time he could speak his first word. And his first word was paper. He can draw accurate and detailed landscapes with only seeing them one time. Next, we have the the only female on our list, because remember, most of those who are affected with Savant Syndrome are males. So she's the only female on the list. Now, I don't know how many since recorded history has taken place. I didn't find a figure that said there's X amount of women who've had this or been diagnosed with Savant Syndrome, but it's predominantly a male-dominated disorders or syndromes. So like Leslie Lemke, she was a blind autistic savant, and she could play music perfectly, and after hearing it just one time. She actually has a second savant skill. So despite her blindness, and this is really interesting, she can walk around without ever running into anything. As she walks, she makes little chirping sounds that seem to act like human echolocation, so much like a bat would do when, they're flying around with sonar. They bounce this echolocation off of other things to get a sense of where things are located and the size of them. She does the same thing with her own chirping noises. It allows it to form an image of what's in front of her, so she never runs into anything, despite being blind since pretty much birth. So very interesting. Come on up. Actually, it's the only case I've ever heard of a human possessing the skill of echolocation. Go ahead, get up. How about now? Anytime. So number 10 is Daniel Tameth. Now he is the brain man, and he's the one I was mentioning towards the beginning of the show, who was the really high functioning autistic savant with exceptional math and language abilities. So he has a rare form of synesthesia. Now we had talked about that. There's only going to be a small handful of you who remember from really earlier shows, and I believe it had to do with the Indigo Children's show topic. And synesthesia is kind of when you see colors, numbers, whatever in colors, and you see the world through colors. So if you said the number 79, they would see it as a specific shade of coloration, not as the number 79 together. And that's how they view the world. So he has a rare form of synesthesia, and he sees integers of up to 10,000 of having their own unique shapes, colors, textures, and feelings. Yes, Nancy remembers. I know Sandy Griffin. You guys who are my earliest members, you guys would remember that show. Unfortunately, we don't have the archive of it anymore, but I did it anyway. I covered the topic. So he sees integers of numbers up to 10,000 of them having their own unique shape and color, texture, and feeling. And he can see the result of math calculations and sense if the number is a prime number or not. He can draw a pie, which looks like a rolling landscape to him that is full of different shapes and colors. And he said that certain numbers will look like a sparkler going off in his head. And then the numbers may appear as, like he said, he described pie looking like rolling landscape to him, full of shapes and colors, but not the numbers themselves. So he also speaks 11 different languages, including Icelandic, and he can learn an entire language in 1 week, which was tested through him learning the Icelandic language, culminating with him getting tested, if you will, during an interview on Icelandic TV. And he was able to answer everybody's questions a lot, like perfectly, like without any issues. You missed a lot. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about the 10 best known savants in the world, Ted. You did miss a lot. See, doesn't behoove you to come in late. Just saying. If you're interested, you'll have to watch the replay. Come on up, Jake. Uppy puppy. Is that the video of him then that you just posted, Katie? Come on up. Or not. Okay. So apparently when he was 4 years old, he had bouts of epilepsy along with his autism that brought on his savant abilities, which is unusual in that he can describe its development, which, because he's so vocal, you don't get that insight with a lot of them. It's pretty unique. He actually says he had to will himself to learn to speak and behave around others. No, that's all right. I never get mad if someone's not here at one of my shows or misses it. It's a good thing about a replay, but I pick my battles, and that's not one of them, because life happens. People lose track of time, whatever. I figure if it matters and it's important to you, you'll be here. If not, you'll catch the replay. Come on up. Come on up. I sometimes watch the replay even if I watch the show. Hey, that's all right. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's what bothered me, that we lost all the archives, because there was a lot of shows in there. So come on, go ahead up. Or not. Come on. So he's the one who talked about that, one of his buddies is really good at kind of letting him know if he's coming on too intensely socially, because he's not able to tell, because it's so easy to get stuck in his own head, if you will, that and to live in his headspace that he has to force himself to speak and behave around others, and because it's not something that comes natural. Now, he is also unique, and then he published his memoir called Born on a Blue Day: Inside the Extraordinary Mind of an Autistic Savant, which again offers a unique, first-time perspective from a first-hand account from a savant, talking about what it's like for him. Now, again, every savant is their own unique being unto themselves with their unique skill set, and what the different disorders they may have or how their savantism came about is going to vary from savant to savant, of course. But the fact that he can talk about it all is like a gold mine for science, because they're like orgasmic over the fact that they're getting this view inside his headspace that you don't get to have with most of the others, because in a lot of the others, they're pretty low functioning on the intelligence scale, but he is very high functioning, meaning that he's pretty close to average intelligence. He is verbal, and he can talk about his experience and how it works for him in his headspace. So unlike other prodigious savants, he can tell how he does it and how it manifests for him. Scientist says that he could be like the Rosetta Stone of being a prodigious savant, which, the Rosetta Stone was kind of like the first archaic writing system that talked about the world and early populations of people from way back then, so that he could be kind of like the unique insight, the only one who's come forward being able to do that. So thanks to people like Daniel, who are so high functioning, it is giving the science a great leap forward in understanding Savant Syndrome. And again, there's only about 50 of them in the world, so it's a limited pool of people to study for science sake. So they have definitely studied what they can, but again, there's a whole world left to know and come to understand. But the genetic predisposition seems to be the main culprit in causing it. So if you have any of these genetic abnormalities in you or in either parent, and in reproducing, having, a set number of offspring who have other disabilities, well, then you're going to have a higher chance than average to have a child who could turn into being a savant. And that is the world of savants, geniuses through disorders. Ta-da! So next week's Willows Bend will be on November. Where the hell am I going, Donna? September 13th. And we got the topics on the table of the strange and dangerous Daedalus Cave. We've got bizarre cases of mass hysteria, legends of man-eating plants, and that's all we had on the table. And I was going to see, do you want me to add more or go through these first? Thank you, Nancy. What are you yelling about, Lori? Am I going on vacation? No. I don't go anywhere. I don't have a social life. You kidding? Come on up. So Sandy G says the caves. Oh, November. Yeah, no, my brain's just jumping ahead on me because I know every week I say the same thing of, oh my God, are we already in this part of the month, or this month is like, we're in September already. The summer just seemed to kind of fly by. Tanya says the cave. So we got the strange and dangerous Daedalus Cave, bizarre cases of mass hysteria, and the legends of man-eating plants. Mary says the mass hysteria. Sandy says the caves. And do you guys want me to add more topics or finish these few first? You can get up at any time, dear sir. You can. Just saying. Go ahead. Hop up. It is not cat food time. It is nowhere near that. So if you're standing on that hope, sad to disappoint you. Okay, so Lori says mass hysteria. Katie says caves. Up there. Nancy says caves. Ted says mass hysteria. Renee says mass hysteria. Kim says caves. Renee says hysteria. I think that we should finish the list. Okay. I know you guys hate when I give you so many topics, but at the same time, you know, it is really the only show I have seen that's a podcast that leaves the choice up to the viewers as to what they're going to see. And my thinking with that has always been, you know, if you're choosing and voting on the topic, it's going to be of interest of you to want to watch it, right? Rather than me just telling you what I'm going to do. You know, I mean, I could, of course, and you guys probably wouldn't care, but, you know, I like to think you guys want a choice. But if any time that changed, let me know, and I will start just picking it myself. But Stace says the caves. Nancy says finish the list. Okay. Come on up. But at the same time, I know you guys are pretty well good with whatever I do cover, so you know, you're not going to get some boring topic. We don't ever have any boring topics. So let's see, we got 5, 8 plus 5. Yeah, so that's everybody then. Okay, well, it looks like everyone's voted. So it looks like the Strange and Dangerous Daedalus Caves is next week. Let me give that a circle so I know which one I'm covering next when I go to do the notes. And we have the, no, I always try to, you know, pick something unusual or isn't covered by everybody. Thank you, Sandy. Much love to you as well, of course. So we have the book group is on Wednesday on September 8th. And I apologize for any confusion there was tonight. You can always onboard the topics. What do you mean, Renee? Thank you, Tanya. What do you mean, Renee, that you can onboard the topics? And you guys, you know, can always suggest a topic as well. And if I don't remember correctly, if I've covered it before or not, because I have memory issues and the archives aren't there for me to pop up to look in to say, did I cover this already or not? Sandy Griffin is like my memory with other shows I've covered. So she'd know if it's been done if I'm not sure. But you guys can suggest topics that you find interesting too. So just know that. I'm waiting to see what Renee says or what she's meaning. You know, I wish you would get up because you're not getting the cat food now. It's too early. So come on up. Get up off your legs. If they get a bit boring, we can change the trail. The trail of what? You're continuing to confuse me, Renee. What do you mean, the topic? Well, and I know it's different when you have different time zones involved too with remembering the show's on, but set an alarm, you know. Set an alarm on your phone or a reminder. Off the subject, says Nancy, but I loved it on Rain Man when he said Kmart socks. Yeah. No, says Renee. It doesn't mean that. Okay. Well, what do you mean by change the trail then? Be clear, woman. Come on now. Yeah, they took a lot of different liberties with that, of course, but you know, his savant abilities were spot on of what he could do. Strap on Velcro shoes. Yep. And Judge Wapner, People's Court. My kids 2 months and 3 years. Yeah, so you know, like I said, I don't ever get angry if someone doesn't make it to a show. Good night, Mary. I pick my battles. How we usually spice it up. Oh, okay, gotcha. I mean, Willows Bend After Dark type stuff. That comes in October, though. So start thinking now about what topics you might want covered for Willows Bend After Dark. And I'm figuring we've always done it on a Friday night. This will be the 3rd annual Willows Bend After Dark season for the Halloween season. So that takes place Mondays and Fridays then for the shows. So start thinking about topics you might be interested in researching or having covered, and let me know them ahead of time, because we're getting close. There's only a couple more weeks left of September before we start those Friday shows. So, and I got to start thinking about what to do for dressing up for them. When does Halloween fall this year, by the way? Halloween's on a Sunday. Okay. So the last Willows Bend After Dark show would be October 29th. So definitely dress up for that. Your second. Yep. It's a lot of people's favorite time of the year. I just didn't want this group to be bogged down by really dark, heavy subjects all the time, because that's not, it's a more of a spiritually inclined group. So didn't want it all negative Nelly stuff. Or murder, death, kill, whatever. You know what I mean? So anyways, think of topics, because we got it coming up. Shoot me a messenger or book group or whatever, and we'll put it on, get it ready to be on the voting block for Willows Bend After Dark. So that's what we got coming up. So next Willows Bend will be November. I go with November again. September 13th. And book group this Wednesday, the 8th. We are still reading The Nature of Personal Reality. Well, that works if you're a night owl. They don't bother me. But anyway, thank you all for coming. Have a wonderful night. And I will see everybody who is interested for the book group Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern time in the room of the group. So have a wonderful night, guys. Love it to all of you.